Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for February 20th. On this day in 1962, the first American went into space. NASA astronaut John Glenn was launched into orbit aboard the Atlas rocket, becoming the first American to orbit the planet. The pride was national only, though, because the first human in space was the Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin, who beat John Glenn by almost a full year. John Glenn became one of the most celebrated astronauts in history, and he had a long career at NASA. He sadly passed away in 2016. An even bigger space undertaking took place on February 20th, 1986. The Soviet Union launched the Mir space station, becoming the first continuously inhabited long-term research station in orbit. Russian cosmonauts actually lived on the station for months at a time, conducting scientific experiments and testing out for the first time the long-term effects that space has on the human body. After the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, American astronauts began having missions to the station. Mir stayed in orbit until 2001, when the Russians decommissioned it, but they gave it a somewhat ceremonious send-off, deorbiting it so that it burned up in the atmosphere. Mir could be seen as a precursor to the more modern International Space Station, which was made in partnership between the US, Russia, Canada, and many other nations. Enough with that happy humans in outer space nonsense, because it's time to talk about Batman. On February 20th, 1944, Batman and Robin jumped from the pages of comic books to another print medium. DC debuted the first Batman and Robin comic strip in newspapers. The series was written by Batman co-creator Bob Kane and offered shorter versions of the Batman and Robin stories that were already being told in longer form on the pages of DC comic books. This was an important step in the mainstream popularity of Batman, introducing the character to a new audience that had never seen him before. The Batman and Robin comic strips ran off and on for decades, with the last one being published in 1991. Batman probably knows how to build a torpedo, and so does Humphrey Bogart.
Could you make a torpedo?
On this day in 1952, the iconic movie The African Queen debuted in theaters. Based on the book of the same name, it starred Humphrey Bogart and Katharine Hepburn as a mismatched pair of British and Canadian expatriates living in Africa during the breakout of World War I, who take it upon themselves to destroy a heavily armed German warship. The movie was actually shot on location in Africa, which was very rare for big Hollywood movies at the time, and it pleased audiences with its blend of adventure, drama, and humor. It's still fun to watch to this day.
I pronounce you man and wife. Proceed with the execution.